sitting outside on this sunny day with the pets, having a cup of tea. And I've got a topic I want to cover. Finding the balance between a consumer society, which is, how do I say this? Mad on disposability and looking after your tools of the trade. Likewise, living in an economy that functions off annual growth without collapse, and basing a lot of your decisions upon writing things off. And now that I've got three things, just sitting here in the pipeline, I mean, there's always things to contemplate, but three things in front of me right now. This is just it's like a conversation, but it's just opening your mind up to what would you do? Because I just don't know if there's a right or a wrong answer, and it's pretty much based upon personal discretion and choices. And it's like, well, we all get to make our own choices, and ultimately, it is our choices which is going to elevate the frequency of the awareness of the consciousness of the planet. So, three things. I mean, let's not talk about the road to becoming established. And then once you are established, you got to maintain things. And I tell you what, my operation's got over 200 tyres running. Isn't that unbelievable? And then you think about tyres, you think about spark plugs, you think about oil, belts, O-rings, pistons. Like, we've got decisions to make upon how we choose to function when we become operators. And I went petrol engines and diesel tractors. It's just how I went. And these engines consume. And what am I trying to get at here? Houses going solar. So it's like the decisions we make in order to make our life function. And ultimately, I think we're all going to be up shit creek at some point when all fuel sources running out. And that's why, have I made the right decision going motors? Look, if it all becomes obsolete, it is what it is, and we will adapt accordingly. But with what I do, which is stewardship, which is keeping the land in check, what are you going to do? Like tractors, firefighter pumps, quad bikes, trenches, boats, engines with hydraulics on them, diesel pump and motors, chainsaws, lawnmowers, wood chippers, post hole diggers, motorized dollies, and then we've got the actual electrical and industrial operations of the actual operation itself, which is power based, and the power that one of my operations consumes is almost enough to match a hospital in a single pump. It's unbelievable. Anyway, the motor, 100 horsepower motor, 160 amp circuit breaker, unreal. Anyway, without a soft starter, you'd pull the entire line out. It's unbelievable. Oh yeah, then motorized welders. I've got a welder that's 415 amps, rods as thick as your thumb. Anyway, we don't need to get into that. It's just there's three particular things at the moment that I find interesting, and when something's worth a few $1,000s, you're willing to give it enough time to fix it, because are you going to throw a few grand down the drain each time if it's constantly breaking? No. So you will take the time to repair it. Something like I'm dealing with at the moment, and I'm not saying it's like the too hard basket, but it's the convenient products, and they're worth between $300 and $400. Power drills, oh yeah, power drills, cordless systems. I originally chose Stanley, but I've gone to Milwaukee now. My M18 Milwaukee half-inch impact driver. It makes seized up 30-year-old rusted on bolts that are 32 mil in size look like just normal bolts. My God, it's got some smack about it. And that's the beauty of being in trade. As you establish yourself and go through the steps and stairs, you recognize the better brands. I don't think you're going to beat Honda Motors. And beyond Honda Motors, we're getting close to tying in and pulling into the conversation I want to have. So I've got a cheap Chinese motor that I used once on a post hole digger. I thought I'd try it. Where I'm at is we've all got our own methods. My method is I'll get the cheaper stuff first to test it to see is it effective within my operation, and then I'll go and get the good stuff. So the reason why I've gone a hand auger, a motorized hand auger, is, well, first of all, long gone are the days of using a shovel to do a 4-foot hole. I've got I've just done 7 kilometers of fence. I've got a holding yard for some stockyards to build, and it's got 30 posts that I'm going to have to actually dig holes for, and then concrete, and then you got the stays and all the other stuff you got to do with it. That's fine. And a potential one on another property that it's a part of this operation. There may be 5 kilometers of fence going in soon, where every 3.5 meters is going to be a 4-foot hole. An unclimbable prison fence, essentially. No one's entering, no one's leaving. A boundary fence with a statement. So I'm just looking at options right now because I've got the brand's Howard. I like Howard. I've got a Howard post hole digger, and it goes on the 3-point linkage and it's driven by the PTO. It's just so heavy though, and it's got this long PTO shaft on it and power takeoff shaft. And if you don't use it for 6 months and you don't keep it well greased, then you got to get the frigging boxy out and heat it all up so you can free it back up and actually get it so it moves back and forth. It's a constant headache to use the bastard, and who knows? Because I've got 30 holes to do here, I may hook that up to the back of the tractor and use that. But when I'm doing maintenance fencing and there's just a rotten strainer here and there, I like the idea of being able to just grab the handheld auger and just go and dig a hole. So this is how we become established and deal with our operations. Another one, I've been dealing with 12-inch pipe for that long that I forgot what it meant to deal with just 1.5-inch, 2-inch poly. And I lost all my footprints. I don't know where they went, so I just bought 6 pairs of them. This is the half the problem I've got is I've got operations on different properties, and you don't want to be carrying everything around on a vehicle. You want to have what you need at each property. So it's just we've got 8 welders. It's interesting. The big one I just got into recently is plasma cutters. That may just give my angle grinders a break. Because there are days where I'll have 6 grinders going at once. Just I love these animals. Look at this, just quick. Again and again. Oh yeah, and hey, mister, how could you ever think that life's lonely when you have pets? Yeah. So thank you over here. Back to it. Finding the balance between a consumer society that values disposability quite highly because of money, time equals money, and then having your tools of the trade and finding the balance between what you would believe that your time is worth, but not only what is your time worth, do you have the skills to get the job done, right? And that's what I was talking about, the $300 to $400 products. I'm not saying it's a too hard basket, but like they're a bastard basket because like they're not worth enough to be putting your time into them to fix them where you could just go and buy another one. But then at the same time, you don't need to have 6 or 7 of them piled up in a corner because you couldn't be bothered putting the time in to get one fixed right. So where I'm at is I just got to the point where my motorized equipment, I just treat it as just disposable goods. And with that, if it broke, I just chucked it out and just got another one. I didn't think twice about is there warranty available? Anyway, that did get the better of me lately with this cheap Chinese motor. And what happened was I didn't even dig one hole. I got halfway down my first hole and I could smell a funny smell coming out the top of the bloody motor. I was like, this is not right. I was like, it's not going to last long. Anyway, I sat it in the shed and I was like, I'm actually going to, not so much of a return, but like ask them the question, what are we going to do here? And they were quite friendly and they were like, well, we actually test everything, so we want to know if there is a problem. So, if there's a product recall, we've got a reputation we want to keep. So they were happy that I got in contact. Anyway, turned out the head gasket wasn't sealed properly and oil was coming out of one of the bolts. And that was a self-evident thing because there was actually oil sitting on the bolt. And so where I'm at right now is it's only $250, and I'm sitting here dealing with like a company that so it's wasting my time, it's wasting their time on these products that aren't worth enough of your time and money to be wasting time on. Nonetheless, I was just like, well, I'll get this done right. Anyway, like I'll tell you now, I bought another motor, a proper one, and ultimately, why did I do that? Well, I've got a 12-inch auger and I've got an 8-inch auger and I've got a 10-inch auger. So the bigger one that I've got will be for the 12-inch, and I'll use the one that's getting dealt with now on the 8-inch. So just horses for courses. If you give each auger a motor, each motor should last longer than if you use one motor for everything. Anyway, so that's getting rectified, but it's going to pull into a much bigger topic to have a look at here in a minute. So they are going to speak to their manufacturer, this supplier, about what would be the best way to approach this, because you can't just get to the head of the bolt to tighten it. And not only that, there probably should have been a sealant on the gasket. Not my problem. Anyway, I didn't drive it that hard. It should have just ran. But these things happen, and it is what it is. But again, so there's 4 things now. There's that. Next, my PRS guitar. I got a Mark Tremonti guitar. The Krieg guitarist. Should have been the best time of my life. I used it for 2 or 3 weeks, and it just stopped working. The bridge, the bridge pickup. It's dodgy, and then sat in the bag, and I did nothing with it. And the reason why I sat in the bag was like I wasn't expecting to get rid of it. It's my guitar. I want to look after it, so I burned all the boxes and everything. And then because I burned all the boxes, you can't just take it to a music store. You've got to speak to the people that you got it off, and then they've got to speak to the supplier who distributed it. And the distributors are the guys that get it off the manufacturer, and they're the ones that are dealing with it. So then you've got to go through this poxy protocol where you're responsible to pay to get the item to their distributor, where they'll take a look at it and see, is there a problem? So it took me about 9 months to get around to getting my PRS. Lovely. Just had some parrots turn up. Get my PRS sent off to the distributor. I just wanted to work, But again, like, I would call that one, that's a reasonably well-priced guitar. It's priced well enough that anything that you do to it's just going to add to the value of why you're going to look after it. Anyway, so if there seems to be a problem, they'll cover the freight and reimburse you for the fact that you had to send it to them. You'll get your guitar fixed and be able to move on with your life. So then there's the PRS. And let's get to the next one. Motorized post driver. Right, so what are we trying to cover here? So the first one, I'm saying like a manufacturing fault. Just there is an issue. They're getting that dealt with now. The Paul Reed Smith, that had an authorization sticker on it saying that it had been checked and approved. I think there's a faulty component in it. The motorized fence post driver, I've driven the guts out of it. Look, and I've got 2 years out of it. And the time's come for me to actually go, well, there could be a problem. Now, where I was at was, again and again, they're not expensive enough for you to be buggerizing around trying to fix the one that's broken. And it's the one that I've actually got broken. It's not that. I think if I'd actually pulled apart the top of it, the jackhammer anvil, I think if I flipped it over and put it back together, it'd just work properly again. But the other side of it is, can't afford to not have one that doesn't work properly. So I looked at it and I was like, you know what, I'm going to get the same one twice, and then I've got spares. How good's that? Which now, yeah. And why do I need to have one that's working properly all the time? Well, I might have to put in 150 star posts next week. I don't want to use a dolly. I just want to throw a motor up on top of it and pull the trigger. That's me purchasing labor, so I don't need someone to annoy me. All right. Next. A conundrum that I've been dealing with now for a few months. This is the stupid thing. No, more than a few months. It's been 18 months I've been looking at it. But just like it's really falling into line now, because since I've got this place into a reasonable state, there's a tennis court here and I've tidied the tennis court up. The problem I've got is before I got here, the place got let go and cows were running everywhere. And I don't know what the cows were doing, and I don't know how it happened, but they managed to bend half of the outer fence with the chain mesh on it for the tennis court, and they've bent them over. Right? So I've been going through different contemplative ideas of what would be the best way to get those uprights straight again. The fence post, essentially, 40 mil. Anyway, and this is what's interesting, because you could just go, well, go and buy a bender, but then so with a hydraulic bender, you don't angle it properly, it won't work. Is what it is. And I was saying, we dither around trying to figure out what's the best answer. Pipe benders, like copper benders for pipe. As simple as you think that would be to rebend these back, it's thick bloody pipe. You're going to kink it. And how long a lever arm are you going to need to actually get enough leverage to be able to bend it back to where it needs to go? So, and the bigger part of the conundrum is, Could I just take the tractor in there and just push it? Yes. Do I really feel like cracking all that concrete? No. So what you've got is posts in the ground that are concreted in, that have been bent over at the base. What can you do to bend them back up to straight? And so, like, after going through enough thinking, it's like, it's pipe benders. That's what it is. And this is where we caught up. Like again, I don't want to throw out our character and our personality and our discipline and who we are as a human and the way that we function, our magic, how it is that we do what it is we do. I was talking about things that sit within the too hard, but I'm going to call it the too hard basket because they're not expensive enough to fix, but they're too cheap to not buy a new one. And it's just like, fuck. Anyway, I got a massive set of benders up at my other property and look after. And here, there's a set that got left after the stockyards got built, and they've just sat here. And I was like, fucking, how good are they? Anyway, I went to go and use them. I was like, well, these bloody things aren't working. And like, so the problem you got is this set, they're $400 brand new. And again, they're sort of falling into that marker. It's like, do I go looking for spares? Or like, how am I going to get the answer for this one here? And ultimately, I could go and get a set of benders right now for $200 and be done with it. Not have to think about it again. And it's like, so you'd be saying, well, what's the problem? So what happens if I go and get those benders and it was just a simple fix for what's already sitting here, and what's already sitting here is top notch, and the issue with it is only a small problem? Great. Problem again is time equals money. So I have had 2 attempts at fixing the set of air hydraulic benders that I do have here. And today, this is what I'm trying to get at. Like, it's beyond skill sets. Do you have the ability to be able to get past the confusion of contemplating and understanding the bigger reason for why the problem was caused in the first place? Problem solving, right? And you get the answer, you've won the game. But here it is. So I pulled the piston body off. It's the reservoir for the fluid, because what was going on is it kept emptying itself. And I pulled it off today and I looked at it and I was like, the O-ring deteriorated. That would make sense why it was emptying. Anyway, so I thought, look, I've got some insertion rubber. I'll attempt to make another one. Put a bit of fluid back into it, started leaking out again. I was just like, you know what, like, see, looking on the internet, and it's like, are there spare parts? And it's like, well, no, they're an import, and with an import, they're not coming with spares because they weren't expensive enough for there to be parts for them, And so that's the first angle, and then like, what my bigger conundrum here is I can't figure out what the real problem is until I've looked at it for long enough to get the aha moment. And all along, I'm going back and forth thinking, do I just buy another hydraulic jack? And then I'd sit down, and then it's like, well, I can't do that because the pin on the top of this jack, it fits the formers for the bends. So you can't just have any jack because there's a specific head on these jacks, and they're mounted into the actual frame itself. And so I'm going back and forth between, do I just buy one, rip that one out that's in there, and the one that I buy, re-establish a platform for the new jack that I put into it, and then just manufacture a head to get the pin that's on top of the pump itself to the right height so I can get the formers to sit on it. Like, how much mucking around do you need to do? So again and again and again, we're trying to make the complicated simple. Here it is. You got to really break it down, break it down, break it down. So I'm going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and from the house over to the workshop, and then I'm one to the other, and then it's like, no, I'll worry about it, go back to the house. Like, oh, I'll go back over there. And so the final time I went over there, I was like, you know what? It's an O-ring. And I thought, I'm going to get my calipers out, my Vermeer calipers, the digital ones, and I'm actually going to get the width of the body of the piston body, like that for the bottle jack. And so I pulled it off. It's like 98 mil inside diameter, 102 mil outside diameter. You go into Google, and then it's just like, put those in. And then you're like, well, is there going to be a hydraulic jack company that's going to have those spares? And it's like, well, let's be clear, it's not going to happen. So you're thinking outside of the circle now to get to, the resolution of the conundrum. Everything I've looked at so far hasn't worked, and it's just like, to be honest with you, if you've got two hard surfaces, rubber, but typically an O-ring is what will do the sealing. If it's just flat rubber, like insertion rubber, you want to have plenty of bolts, and you want to have some pressure on those bolts to make sure that it is just compacted. If you're using a thread at the top to push something in, for example, you need an O-ring so the O-ring can begin to flatten so it can create a seal. So what I found is throttle bodies have 102 millimeter O-rings, and I was like, well, that's excellent, because I can get a throttle body O-ring kit where there's 4 O-rings, all of that size, for like $20, instead of picking out the specific size and waiting for 60 days for it to turn up from China. So here it is, may have found the answer. All I'm doing here is I'm going to wait for that shit to turn up. When it turns up, I will put the O-ring in it. I will put the body on. I will put some fluid in it, and I'll give it a day or two. And if it seals, bang, we're onto a winner. I've got those things back up and running. Great. I was talking about tools of the trade, disposable society. Is the juice worth the squeeze? Time equals money, all the rest of it. So I managed to break it down enough. I managed to make the complicated simple enough to recognize that the issue was that there was an O-ring that needed to be replaced. But to even recognize that it was an O-ring in the first place, and then to go looking for one to be able to get spares of that O-ring, to be able to always have that to fix the problem if it happens again, that takes brain power to do that shit, So the intellectual power that it took to figure out how to do something. Now, if this was a manufacturing line, that would be a fantastic breakthrough. But it's not. It's one friggin' product. So now what I've got is something that I've taken. So there it is. Like you start something and you've got to commit to a decision about how you choose to feel about your tools. There it is. Last year, I gave someone a chainsaw as a gift. I could have kept that chainsaw and gave them one of my second-hand chainsaws, but when it's your tools of the trade, the intention was, here, bud, here's a new chainsaw, start your journey. I've got a chainsaw that's been in my life for years now, and instead of buying a new one, I'll keep getting spares to repairing it, because it's my chainsaw, And so I knew there was a point to this. Sorry for coming, it took half an hour to get there. When it comes to our tools, we have to make a decision. Are we going to base it upon disposable thinking where we just treat it as assets to write off and just renew every couple of years? Or are we going to take our tools seriously and go, that's mine? They're a part of my belongings and I'm going to look after them. So obviously I have seen that those pipe benders deserved a second chance because there's not actually a great deal wrong with them. And I thought, I am willing to put enough time into them to get them to work properly again, because there could be a few more years of good use out of them. Isn't this interesting, hey? Having the willingness to repair things to get more use. It's just breathing life back into something that was deemed dead. It's funny because Today, you know, even just through my meandering and going back and forth and contemplating, could have just bought a new jack and it would have cost me less purely because time equals money. So I think when we take ourselves seriously, there comes a point in time where we've actually got to make the decision, even if I've bought it and it hasn't cost that much, because I've made it a part of who I am, I've made it a part of why I'm established. You know, we made it a professional decision based upon it. And I think every tool that we use for our trade, which is our hands, which we insert our gift into, it deserves the respect of time to repair it if it gets broken. So, yeah, nothing's made like they used to be made. Honest to goodness, nothing is. It's atrocious how ordinary the quality of everything is nowadays. Um, yeah, again and again, do you go and buy a brand new vehicle, or do you have something that you buy with cash? See, I own everything, and it's all been bought with cash. Everything, you know, nothing, no debts, nothing. And I think that's where it sits. The decision: do you live a life based upon debt and expansion through how much debt you can accumulate, or do you save your cash, or do you find yourself in a position to sustain and maintain your life and live within your means and buy what you can afford to have and look after what you have and give it enough chances where once you get to the point that like it has seen its time, you can then move it on. Yeah. I think everything that's brought into existence that was a creation from someone deserves its fair time. Anyway, so it's like that bloody quad bike. It took me 2 years of like an hour and a half on a Saturday here and there to be, you know, the worst state of defeatism of just like, what on earth is going on here? To finally pull the head of the carburetor off to see that there was a holding clip for the needle sitting there that was just floating about in the top of it. No wonder it was never going to work because the needle was loose. Fuck. And then once that was fixed, boom. Best bike I've ever had. It just works so friggin' well. You know? God's gift. God always has gifts for us, and I think it's who we become through repairing what's being gifted to us. Because nothing's easy. Um, I've got my KLX 350 with this Bakuni carburetor and its brand new motor on it, and new tyres and shit. Um, it's got a head gasket that needs to be replaced. And either I give it a full Saturday and just do it, or a full Sunday or something, or you know what? Because I don't want the heartache, it's the heartache that's the problem, hey? Maybe I just give it 2 hours here or there. I'll pull the plastics off. Then I'll get the carby off one point. And then just deal with it. And then as I start to feel the heartache, stop. And then just walk away and come back. And just like, you know, it's sitting in a shed. Doesn't matter if it works or not. And then it's not that hard of a job. It's just, it's a time. It's a little bit tedious as a process. And if I was to take it to the mechanic, $110 an hour plus GST, he was like going hard without any problems, 6 hours. So $660 for something that I could do if I just pulled up. And so this is where we're caught. It's like, you know, it's that whole time equals money thing. You know, getting back to it. So when we choose our weapons for warfare, our tools for the trade, each thing that we have deserves the time that we give to it because it's actually a belonging. It's not just some disposable waste that we're just looking to use the guts out of and then throw away. It's a trash-based society where we're not looking after what we have anymore. You know, For example, that vehicle that I've got started running a little bit funny. Spark plugs went, so I just got new leads, new spark plugs, and new coils. Why would I think twice? I got a trailer that I turned into a box trailer. You don't think I could have just bought a box trailer for like $1,200 and been done with it? I probably it cost me more to build it, not materials but time. And like I've got the gear, 8,000 watt generator sitting there. I've got the 15 amp MIG welder sitting there, and it's 100% duty cycle working on steel for a trailer. So that trailer would have been good for 200 or 300 kilos. It'd be good for a ton now. Everything's doubly reinforced. Everything. And why was I so keen to I put a top in on it and filled it in and made it all robust and strong? Because I thought we live in a world right now where they complain about covering your load. I was like, I'm gonna fill that in completely so I can tie everything inside of it down with hockey straps and just be like fucking yeah, cover your load. It's in a cage. Yeah. Back to it. That was the point of the conversation that I was trying to comprehend. When you make a decision to take something on board as a tool for your trade, you must accept that you've got to look after it, no matter how much it's worth. Because what are you going to do if everything that you purchase, the little $30 tools, like pliers, multi grips, again and again, buy decent things. Don't get cheap multi grips. Go a little bit better of a quality. Get rid of those ones that have got like the nylock nut on it. You'll be tightening up the nut in no time, and you won't be able to use them properly. But to be honest with you, to go beyond multi grips, get footprints. The harder you push, the tighter it goes. It's great stuff. Again, I got a jet ski sitting there. It's crazy, isn't it? So many things. And at some point, I'm going to have to do it up and use it. Just think about the point now. I don't really feel like getting anything else. I think it's like the cup's full, topped up or established. Top notch bike, the jet ski. It'll be top notch once it's running. Quad bikes, trikes, mowers, tractors, all the equipment, all the power tools, all the cordless tools. Just set up. It's done. It is what it is. Anyway, it's just, I guess. So, what's the question that I'm putting forward now? Was it worth my while losing 6 months worth of playing tennis just because I thought I wanted to figure out that it was a deteriorated O-ring sitting inside of a set of pipe benders that I only needed to spend $20 to get a set of those O-rings for to be able to fix it? Was it worth me losing the 6 months of playing tennis? These are the answers that we've got to look at, hey? So I could have just, taken those benders that were there and thrown them. Someone else would have got the time out of it, and I could have just bought a new set for $200, fixed the fucking things, and been done with it. So where I'm at right now is I've made a commitment to the benders. It's time to get them fixed, and I'm going to hold on to them until I'm dead. Anyway, there are no right or wrong answers in life, but just once you have to start fixing things, you'll have to start having a look at why you make the decisions that you make. Otherwise, we just end up with the same problem that we've always had, which is accumulating garbage. So to wrap this up now, the question that I want to ask, I want to lay out there and something for you to think about is, what decisions are you going to make to help minimize your footprint? That's what it was all about. I was like, I want to minimize the footprint. I'm sick of seeing waste. And even though I'm going to miss out on one thing, if I can get these to be fixed, like I like to see something get every last bit of life out of it that it can. It's the bush mechanic within me. And however you choose to function is actually going to help you to understand who it is you are, what it is you're doing, and what direction it is that you want to head. Where I've landed in life and the opportunity that God has given me, my entire existence is based upon breathing life into what already exists. It's a resurrection. It's fantastic. All I'm doing is liberating things that need to be de-rusted to get back up and running, and they function as good as they ever have. And is that a right or a wrong answer? I think it's just God being good to his child and knowing how he works, honestly. Anyway, I hope there's some food for thought here. What is your footprint, and how do you see yourself with your future choices, with how you want to contribute into what will be your legacy for the future? Have a good day. Bye.